The world is louder and more chaotic than ever. That's why clarity and truth have never been more important. Welcome to the Trust Factor Podcast. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining another episode of the Trust Factor Podcast. Please excuse the voice, the hoarseness. I'm a little bit under the weather, but not enough to keep me down. So much to rant about, so much going on in the world. The world gives us so much to talk about. In truth, we shouldn't be talking about it. In truth, we should be avoiding these subjects and we should just be hyper-focused on doing the right thing. But let's be real. Look around, okay? The vast majority of human population cannot manage to focus on any one thing for any length of time, certainly not in this generation. And it's being pushed in our faces. You can't avoid it. No matter where you go, no matter what you look at, you're seeing all of these things that the world is throwing at us. About 20 years ago, I remember being Midtown Toronto on a blistering hot summer day, probably into the high 30s, low 40s Celsius. I remember being in shorts and t-shirts and sweating, not wanting to get out of the car, just sitting in the AC. And then I look and see somebody outside in a religious community walking down the street in a black suit with black thick shoes, with their black felt high hat, with their black frock, this heavy coat that is on top of it all, that's downfilled. You could see it puffing. And he's walking through this heat. And I'm thinking to myself, what is wrong with these people? Where is the sense of balance? And it got under my skin. I remember that clearly and vividly. Today, I appreciate that individual. Today, as I've matured and I've grown and I've learned, which is the key to success in life, which is what you're all doing by listening to this podcast, I appreciate that individual. Why? What changed? Let me tell you what changed. Yesterday, I came across a young Asian guy, probably 25, 26-year-old guy who's very well-spoken, polished, and refined, despite the fact that his English is completely broken. And this individual shtick that's making him popular online is the following. Government is a lie. Religion is a lie. Science is a lie. That's what he's built his whole premise on. That we've been lied to, that all the world systems are phony, that they're all made up of lies, and that we follow them like sheep. This is his shtick, and it's garnered him a lot of attention. Now, I watched it for a little bit to understand what his point is, because I think it's important to expose yourself to other people's viewpoints so that you could build up your own or learn how to combat these ideas. Because at the end of the day, if you are committed to your ideology, you have to know what they're going to come at you with. You need to educate yourself in order to have good answers. If you don't have good answers, you're in a problem. You're in a real problem. So this guy says, every time I say that government is a lie, he loses 1% of his followers. Every time he says that religion is a lie, he loses 3% of his followers. And every time he says that science is a lie, he loses 10% of his followers. Now, let me give you my take on it. My take on it is not that all of these institutions are lies, or maybe you can say that they are lies, but the question is not the what. It's always the why. It's nice to point out certain truths, but if we don't understand what caused those truths to become truths in the first place, then we will constantly repeat the same problem. And my take on it is that the reason that these institutions are built on lies is because they are built by human beings, and human beings are corrupt in nature. We all have an evil inclination, and that evil inclination drives us to do things that are self-serving. And really, it's just about a certain amount of money. Everybody has their price tag. And in some cases, it's dollars. In other cases, it's prestige and power. But it always comes down to a certain price tag. And no matter who that individual is and what position they hold, if somebody offers them enough of what they love and hold so dearly, then they will change directions with the wind. Whatever direction the wind is changing in, they will change their position and their opinion. And it doesn't matter how obvious it is, they will still change their positions at the drop of a hat when given the right amount of influence. That's the reality, and that's why these institutions are lies. They're built on lies. It's not that the institutions themselves or what they stand for is a lie. They're very much important. They play an important role in society. It's the fact that they have flip-flopped, that they have not remained constant, that they have changed with the times depending on who the highest bidder is, who's in charge at the time, and what their price tag is. That's it. Science is the same thing. We saw that throughout COVID. We've seen the results of how much science can be influenced by dollars. We see that in government every single day. It's right under your nose. If you choose to ignore it, that's your problem. If you choose to see it, it's there every day for you to recognize. This individual that I saw 20 plus years ago was not one of these individuals. He wouldn't fare well in any of these government institutions. Why? Because this individual is the sole person responsible for us having God's Torah today. What do I mean by that? How is one person responsible for us having a divine Torah today? It's because that individual represents somebody who is not willing to let go of what they know is true. When they find truth, they hang on to it. They invest in it with every fiber of their being, and they will do everything that they can to maintain that truth. It doesn't matter what the temperature is outside. He's going to make sure that he holds on to the truth. It used to bother me, and it bothered me up until recently also, and sometimes it still creeps up on me. Oftentimes, even with my own rabbi, who's a very extreme individual. And you know how I feel about extreme people. I always shoot for balance. It's a Torah idea. The Torah tells us, and the Rambam, Maimonides, tells us clearly that we have to be as far away from the right and as far away from the left as humanly possible in order to be an ish matzliach. In order to be a successful person, you need to be smack center, balance. But he also warns you. He also gives you a caveat. There's an exception. That exception is when it comes to maintaining truth. When it comes to maintaining God's divine Torah, we can go to extremes. And it is precisely those extremes that have allowed us to maintain a Torah. Think about this. Thousands and thousands of years have passed, and there is only one version of God's Torah. That's it. The 5 books of Moses, there is only one. There is no other document on planet Earth or in the universe that is of a divine source. There just isn't. And I can do an entire year of classes just on that to prove it to you, that there is not one letter in God's Torah in the 5 books of Moses that could have even begun to be written by a human being. Now, we could have lost that. Think about it. The Jews were spread out throughout the entire world. We have nations everywhere, including China, including Yemen, including Iraq, including Switzerland. Every corner of the world, there are Jewish communities, and we've been there for thousands of years. And yet, despite for thousands of years not having communication or easy communication, we didn't have fax, we didn't have emails, we didn't have internet. It would take months, if not years, to send a message around the world. And despite all that, it didn't matter where you went in the world. You could have gone from Sweden to China, opened up a Sefer Torah, and read from the exact same words. Nothing changed. How's that possible? Thousands and thousands of years, different cultures, different societies, different information. Society is swinging and swaying in the wind, left and right, depending, liberal, conservative. All these different ideologies are coming and changing the realities of today, of the time that they're living in. And despite all that, not one letter changed in the Torah. You understand? Volumes can be written about that. And I will tell you who we need to be grateful for. It's that individual 20 years ago, walking down the street on a 40-degree day, wearing all of those layers of clothing because he understood and he fell in love with God's truth. And there was no price that he was willing to accept in order to abandon his ways. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be like them. It doesn't mean that you're able to even be like them, because that takes a very special character to be so in love, to be so extremely in love with something that there is nothing that's going to tear you away from them, especially when it's an intangible, when it's just a concept, a theory, a philosophy, a theology, and you're going to hold on to it for dear life. Also reminds me of a yeshiva. I remember also maybe 10, 15 years ago, sitting with some yeshiva boys, talking to them about where they're going to school. And one of them was just kicked out of a local yeshiva. And I said, why'd they kick you out? And he said, because he wore purple socks. Everything else was good. The suit was right. The hat was right. Everything was right. But because he wore purple socks, he got kicked out of that yeshiva or suspended. And at the time I thought, wow, that's crazy. And today I think, thank God that we have people like this. It doesn't mean I need to be like that. If you are like that, which some cases you are, by the way. Just think about it. A mother who loves her children wants to be with her children day and night, 24/7. No problem. The more she loves her children, the more she wants to be around them. The more somebody loves money, the more you can't pull them away from money. It's always on their mind, 24/7. Warren Buffett didn't become a billionaire by just being, it's okay. If I make a little bit today, great. If I don't, No, that's all he did. Breathe, sleep, eat. Everything he did focused around money. That's why he was a multi-billionaire driving around in an old jalopy, perfectly content because he understood the value or the depreciating value of a vehicle. He's extreme when it comes to money. When you're extreme and in the department of truth, it doesn't matter what society thinks. If you're wearing the wrong color socks, then you don't belong here. That's it. Don't send your kids there if you don't like it, but doesn't mean you have to criticize them. On the contrary, you need to appreciate these people because it is precisely those individuals that have allowed us over millennia, when everybody else's books have been changed over and over and over again, dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of versions of different Bibles, the Jewish Torah remains complete and intact, unchanged for millennia. It's not thanks to the guys who think, I'll do it today, I won't do it tomorrow, it's fine. No. I do it every day, every second of my life. That's what allows us to maintain the identity that we have today. So we have to appreciate these people. And what does this tell us? What does this cement for us? What I've been telling you for the last probably few weeks, that the context with which you view the world has the biggest impact on you. That instead of looking at somebody like that with disdain, which is wrong, first understand them, get an education. Figure out who we're talking about here and why they're dressed that way and what their convictions are and what that's resulted in. And then when you understand what I've just told you, suddenly you can have an appreciation for this individual. Ignorance is the thing that brings humanity down, and it always has. When people get educated on each other, then hate goes out the window. Just look at anti-Semitism. It flies in the face of logic. That people would hate us for what? For bringing technological advancements into the world? For bringing biotechnological advancements, for helping them live happier, healthier lives, for sharing consciousness and wisdom and philosophy and all of these wonderful ideas that we've brought to the world, for sharing God's Torah. That's why they hate you. A small group of 15 million people are exceeding all expectations of success on the planet because they're doing the right thing. And instead of putting them on a pedestal and saying, this is what I could aspire to, let me surround myself with these people because they're clearly doing a lot of things right, they choose to hate. It's all ignorance. If you just take a minute and learn, there's a guy named Nicholas the Zionist. He's online. You've probably seen him before. And all he does is have these debates. He's a very well-educated guy, not even Jewish. And all he does is debate people. And 9 times out of 10, the conversation comes to an abrupt end because the other person can't run away fast enough because they don't know 1% of the things that they claim to know. He presses them just a little bit. Oftentimes, it doesn't get past an introduction, and these people can't hold a conversation because they are simply uninformed. They are wrong. They are uneducated, and they are at the same time filled with passionate hate. They don't know why they hate so much. They just hate. And the reason they hate so much is because they don't know. So that's the point. Your approach to the situation, just like I said, when somebody comes and berates you, when somebody comes and embarrasses you, insults you, then instead of getting mad at them, recognize that this person is being used as a tool in Hashem's hand. He's coming at you because he's already due a huge amount of punishment, and God hand selected him to come and berate you because he loves you. And he wants you to figure out that you're doing something wrong. But the individual who's coming at you, he's lined up for some really, really nasty times. So instead of feeling mad and you want to strike back at him, feel sad because now you're educated. Now I know that this person is in for a lot of trouble. I feel sorry for him. When you know that a police officer is pulling you over, like we said the other day, and you know that his job is holy, he may not be holy, but the work that he's doing is holy. Then you recognize and you stop, and your desire to shoot back and to start accosting the police officer goes out the window because you understand, I couldn't do his job and he's doing a holy job. And if he's failing at it, he's going to have a high price to pay because he's in a position of authority, and on and on and on. That's the point for today. I bring this all up just because I saw this individual the other day talking about how the world is just a lie. And he's not wrong. It's called Alma da Shikra. Olam HaSheker, a world of lies. It's in the Torah. Hashem tells us it's a world of lies. But why is it a world of lies? Because we are created with an evil inclination that corrupts us. And because we run these organizations, we run the world. And therefore, when it comes to humanity, you will always find corruption. You always have to dig. You always have to try and uncover the truth. When do you not have to try and uncover the truth? The truth that has always been here. The truth that is eternal. The truth that is in the 5 books of Moses that was given to us by our loving Creator. In there, my friends, is the only truth. And that's why people fight tooth and nail and do whatever it takes to maintain that truth. Have an amazing day, my friends. We'll chat again tomorrow. Thank you for spending time with us on the Trust Factor podcast. If you've heard something today that moved you, save this episode and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss upcoming conversations that challenge, empower, and uplift. And if you're on social media, connect with us. Leave your thoughts. Drop a quote that resonated with you. Hashtag the Trust Factor podcast. Until next time, keep growing in your trust and keep living with purpose. I'm Jesse Revivo, and this has been the Trust Factor Podcast. Thanks for listening.